wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. LoRosa is here as well. We got a special guest in the building. He's running for mayor of New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Blake. Welcome, brother.
What's good? What's going on, y'all?
How you feeling?
Oh, man. Another day above ground's a blessed day. We rocking right now.
That's right. For people that don't know who you are and your background, give them a quick rundown of who Michael Blake is.
Born and raised in the Bronx, New York. Mm-hmm. Public schools K through 12, PS 79, 118 D with Clinton. Mm-hmm. Let me go a step back. Full name is Michael Alexander Blake. So for the Jamaican Massive,
as soon as you said Alexander, they knew exactly.
They really understand Bustamante vibes. They really understand what's going on out here right now. Everybody has a Winston, Larrington, or Dexter in their family right here, right? Or Donovan. Grew up here, went to Northwestern, studied journalism. My mom, blessings to my mom. 40 years she worked at a manufacturing plant, raised 4 boys. Mm-hmm. My dad, God rest his soul, was the janitor at St. Barnabas. Mm-hmm. And after Northwestern, life was changed forever when I was trained by this man named Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. I was one of 10 in the Yes We Can program. They trained us on how to run races. Went out to Michigan. We won races in Michigan, and then rocked with them. Life was changed from there. I always joke I was the other black man in Iowa with him right there, right? Mm-hmm. And then after Iowa, 7 more states. Went to the White House with him for 2.5 years, ran all his black outreach, minority business outreach, and then I came back home because I wanted to help my people. Quite frankly, I wanted to show these young cats on the block that you can grow up on the block and still make it, go to the White House and come home. Came back home, was elected to the Assembly for 6 years. My Brother's Keeper program for boys and young men of color, prompt pay bill, raised the age. Khalif Browder was our constituent. But now it's about, doing more. So I'm a husband. I'm a bonus father. Just having my first Father's Day as a bonus dad, so that's been a blessing right there. Much love to the fathers all here. I'm an alpha. I'm a Mason. I'm a Reverend. We decided to do something special. Now,
why you putting your hat into this New York City race?
I think I'm the best one prepared right now. Mm-hmm. Look, the biggest thing people are facing is affordability. New York is it's crazy expensive, right? And at the end of the day, I got a full agreement right now. And if we want to be serious about changing the game when it comes to cost of living, then there's specific things we have to do. We have to have ending credit scores. Credit scores being used for housing applications doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. We need to increase income limits on these housing applications as well. We need a local median income because area median income is not working. It doesn't make any sense that you have Westchester, Suffolk, and Rockland County in the calculation. That doesn't make sense at all. And then when we think about what's happening, I do believe you need to have someone who has White House, State House, and local experience, and I have all 3 because we're watching the foolishness of Trump, and people are understandably scared every day, whether it be in New York or LA or anywhere in between. And so I jumped in because I want to show people, yes, you can have the next generation of black leadership. Yes, you can have someone who is qualified at all the levels. Yes, you can have someone who's actually focused on affordability in a very real way. And let's be clear, you got to talk about how you're going to pay for all this. Mm-hmm. And I said there should be a vacant apartment tax for people that are not living in New York City. We should, focus on the NYPD excessive overtime. You got $1.4 billion in that. We can do things to actually pay the bills and actually make sure we change the game at the same time. And that's why I say to folks, if you're looking for the candidate who can do that, you should be ranking Michael Blake first for mayor.
How did you feel about how Mayor Eric Adams were in New York?
Well, I wouldn't be running if I thought he was doing his job. He spent more time trying to stay out of jail than actually helping people. Right?
What do you think he did good, if anything, and what would you change immediately that you didn't like what he did?
How much time we have?
We got a little bit of time.
Look, I think how many things can you change? You have a scenario where you had unconstitutional stop and frisk on the rise. Mm-hmm. You had a culture of corruption. You had a dynamic where they were trading dynamics when it comes to ICE raids for him to, again, stay out of jail. That's not me saying that's just the reality. Mm-hmm. You have 1 out of 8 New York City public school students are homeless. Costs are going up. The list goes on and on. I think that you have a scenario where there was great talent hired in. I think sometimes what happens is that the very select few who made a lot of mistakes cast a shadow on everything else. Mm-hmm. But you can't ignore that when you have a dynamic where people were getting promotions because of sex deals at NYPD and people getting paid off. That's nonsense, right? And real talk, it makes it harder for all of us that are black that are trying to do some things. Because you go in these conversations like, well, I'm not sure if the city's ready for the next thing. No, it is. We are not him. And if we want to talk through how do we do this differently, then you got to change the game on this.
Now, I got to ask you, what the hell is cross-endorsing, right? Because it came out today that you are cross-endorsing Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? That's kind of, it feels like, look, we going to battle together, but we going to be friends while we do it? Like, what is cross-endorsing? You break it down.
I mean, that's the vibes right there. So, all right, so 11 of us are Democrats running in the primary. 11 of us are Democrats running in the primary.
Correct.
Because we have ranked choice voting, which started 4 years ago.
What is ranked choice voting for people that don't know?
So in New York City, you don't have to and you shouldn't just vote for one person. You should actually rank 5 people. So whoever is your first choice when you go to vote, which if that means if you vote an absentee or if you vote in early voting goes to the 22nd, or if you wait till the 24th, your first choice, you should circle in, this is my first choice. Your second choice,
Why?
all the way through. Because now the only way someone can win is if you get 50% plus 1 of votes. So whoever is the lowest vote getter in the first round gets knocked out. If Envy says, you know what, Michael Blake is my first choice, and then, you know, Raven Robinson is my second choice, and Hannah's my third choice, Michael Blake gets knocked out, then Raven then gets the vote. So it actually gives the voter of New York more power. Because back in the day, if you only voted for one person and that person doesn't make it through a runoff, then you're done.
Right.
So what we're saying right here, in particular when it comes to Zoran and I talk about affordability the most, right? We're real clear on if we're serious about the number one issue that New York is talking about is that it is crazy expensive in the city. So who has the plans around that? And I've said, you know, I'm making it clear. I think Zoran is going to be my number 2. You know, I'm ranking him as my number 2. You know, grateful that he is cross-endorsing us as well because he's also making it clear we got to break from the corruption of Cuomo and we got to make it clear that you can address affordability. You can do both, right? So we're going to still figure out who's the rest of the ballot. You know, I think I'm pretty clear on the rest of that team because you have other great candidates. You know, Adrian Adams, you know, Zelno Mari, Brad Landa, they're out here, you know, doing their thing. But I want to make it very clear to New York City, you should rank Michael Blake first, especially for all the folks out here who are still trying to make their decisions. But then the cross endorsement is saying, I want you to know that there are other people on the team that I also want to make sure are on your ballot.
Now, question, this is just devil's advocate, right?
Talk to me.
Why wouldn't they rank you number 1 and you tell everybody to rank Eric Adams number 2? I tell you why. If Zoran is your biggest competition, why would you rank him 2 and not rank somebody that is really no competition number 2 because it's easier to win? It's kind of like, you know, when you're playing basketball, right? Yeah. I wanted the Knicks to play the Pacers. I didn't think the Pacers were going to rock them.
Come on, it's too soon.
I didn't think the Pacers were going to rock them. I don't think nobody did, but
it's too soon.
You would want that because you feel like that would be an easier win.
Well, fair. So the 1-2 is not necessarily you are trying to battle with that person. It's really making it clear to your voters that if I don't keep going, this is who I want you to make your next person.
Got you.
Right. So like this is the allegiance that we want to see happen here. So when people are thinking through, okay, help me to understand this, and this happened last few days, you know, first debate we had, everybody, Times, Post, Daily News said I won the debate. It was real clear that we handled the debate stage. Now you have a lot of folks that are coming through saying, okay, I'm now trying to decide who's my 5. So I want everybody in the squad to understand if you are saying we can do this differently and you don't want to go back to Cuomo, you want something different, then you should rank me first. You should rank Michael Blake first. But then I need you to fill out the rest of the ballot. Because if you don't, you actually helping other cats.
Gotcha.
Right. And that's the key right now. And the reason why we keep drilling this home, I made a decision on who was most aligned with me on that issue.
And why don't you like Cuomo? I mean, I've seen you taking shots at Cuomo in his past and all the things that he did. What's your major problem with Cuomo?
I mean, 15,000 people died in COVID nursing homes because of policies that he did for a book deal. You had 13 women who credibly said that he sexually assaulted them and had a toxic environment. You have a dynamic where he said shuck and jive in 2008 and made it seem like it wasn't about Barack Obama. Barack Obama was the only black candidate that was real in that scenario. He consistently is laying out all the bad things about other people. and is actually not talking through what is good right here. Close hospitals when it comes to addressing the mental health crisis. So like, we don't need to go back to a name just because you recognize the name. It's now time to change the game. And so I'm saying to folks, here's the difference you have. He's saying that when I talk about public safety, I'm saying there should be 1,000 mental health professionals instead of NYPD, because the NYPD will tell you they weren't trained on doing that. You want to help these kids? We should have civics, financial literacy, and mental health for every student before they graduate. You actually want to help people with their housing? Let's talk about what's going on with credit scores and income limits. And at the end of the day, Andrew Cuomo, who, quite real talk, wasn't even living in New York City for a minute. I mean, pretty much was in Westchester the whole time. Now is saying I should come back because he thinks he's the best option. No. And I think people got to really ask themselves, like, during COVID, his policies were killing people. During COVID, I was with World Central Kids feeding people. That's what people got to be asking themselves.
You're right. Now, you mentioned the police. Crime in New York City, it seems like it's on the rise, right? If you've been out and about, I think last week 2 people got shot in Times Square, right? I
mean, the numbers say otherwise, but the feeling is
like that. It feels horrible.
Yeah.
What would you do for crime? We had Zoran up here, and he says he wouldn't necessarily defund the police, but he said he would take some finances from the police and give it to different agencies and things like that. What would be your take on that?
Number one thing we have to do, anybody that's walking the block, whether if I'm in the Bronx at 3rd Ave 149, if I'm in Harlem at 125 in Lex, the mental health crisis is real.
Correct.
Yo, it's like a zombie land out here right now. And those cats need help. They don't need to be locked up, right? And so what I say to everyone, my main priority for public safety, we should have 1,000 mental health professionals on subways and streets to help them immediately, as opposed to the NYPD who is saying, we're not trained on this. I came with that number because 1,000 is essentially the number for the National Guard that's been put out there. National Guard and more police standing there is actually not fixing anything, right? And I want to be clear, I got much respect for those that serve in uniform, but if someone is struggling in need,
right,
help them. And they're telling you, we're not trained on this, right? So you do that, then people feel safer to get on subways, they feel safer to go outside, and we got to focus on involuntary commitment. When you know someone is clearly a threat to themselves, why would you just let them be there? And so if you do that, then you can do 2 different things. You can have police with body cameras on, so there's actual accountability on both sides, right? And simultaneously, then you can have more cops that actually walk in the street and doing precision policing in neighborhoods that need the help. That's what folks need right now. And look, I'm that cat who I endured police brutality twice, right? Once in high school where a cop said, I went to DeWitt Clinton High School, once where a cop said that they heard me yelling at them while driving the other direction. I was like, okay, so we just looking to pick a fight right now, right? And then when I was an assemblyman, there was a fight that was happening. We de-escalating the fight. They grabbed me, they tossed me against the gate, and another cop comes over and says, get off of him, he's the assemblyman. And I said, what would have happened if you wouldn't have recognized me? Right? Even still, I'm saying you need to have police out here, but it's got to be smarter policing, right? The last thing that has to happen, repeat offenders, right? There's an underlying current. If we help people make and keep more money on the front end, then we're not talking about people shoplifting on the back end, right? So if you do those steps, then you have more cops that come back on the force actually try and do it the right way. I don't know any person that doesn't want to get home, cop and community. And if we're serious about the fundamental issue around public safety, to me, it is underlined around mental health.
Well, what do you say to people? Because in sitting here and talking to you, you explain what you mean when you say defund the police, and we understand that. Yeah. But on face value, someone like a Cuomo, he shoots back at you guys with the fact that you say defund the police because the messaging is not interpreted the right way. How do y'all get around that in this race? Because people hear defund the police and they don't understand what you just said to me. And
I'll remind them that in 2020, Andrew Cuomo said out of his mouth at a press conference that defund the police is a legitimate movement. Andrew Cuomo is hoping folks have amnesia, so I'm going to help remind him that Obamacare can help him with that. He gets real confused about things. So when we talk through it, there is no one out here saying eliminate the police department, right? When they're using the phrase, it's about how do you change the funding that's happening to focus on preventative measures. Violence interruption work, Life Camp, Save Our Streets, Until Freedom with Tamika. I mean, you got so many dope groups that are doing that work. That's what people are really trying to say. And at the end of the day, what we're talking through is everybody wants to be safe.
Right.
So we can keep talking about this random one-liners, or how do you actually fix this?
My thing has always been when we talk about budgets, right?
Yeah.
And people say defund the police, to take money from the police, but I always feel like we find money for so many different things.
For everything that we want.
If we want to start an agency where we have more mental health professionals on the street, why don't we pay for it?
1,000%.
I just seen somebody spend $45 to $48 million on a parade that only had 5 people out there.
1,000%.
So if we can find all that, and even with congestion pricing, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on congestion pricing?
Yeah, congestion pricing is the right intent, because at the end of the day, it was to reduce traffic and improve the environment. The implementation was clunky, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do that right. But at the end of the day, when we think about from a budget perspective, a budget shows someone's values. There's no way we can say in a $115 billion budget, we can't find what we got to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm talking through, yes, you can have that $1.4 billion of excessive overtime at NYPD and put that towards the kids. Yes, you can actually reclaim back the $2 billion of unclaimed fees and fines and actually help the community. We can do these things. And the reason why it's not happening is because of lack of leadership. And to the earlier question about Eric Adams, we got to ask ourselves, for 4 years, what was he doing on this?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're all running, because it's not working. And so when I talk through how do you make sure that you help nonprofits get funding up front so they're not waiting for reimbursements on the back end? What are you doing to make sure that our immigrants are being protected? Because, yes, we're going to stay as a sanctuary city because that's the right thing to do. Yes, we're going to put safe havens on our schools because we're going to ban ICE from coming on in. You have to put that kind of money in place to actually help people, because to the underlying piece, you got Trump. Mm-hmm. And you got to worry about Medicaid cuts and Medicare cuts and all these things that are happening. And that's why when people are saying to me, all right, Michael Blake, why you? I'm seeing these other names. There's a lot of people out here. Why you? You got to ask yourself, January 1st next year, who is best prepared to make sure we can actually battle against Trump, help our city, but also keep our focus on what we're doing around affordability and people of color.
Now, you talked about congestion price, and you said it's a great idea, right? But executed horribly.
Yeah.
My question to you is I feel like we go for the money before we care about people's feelings, right? People are scared to take the train, right? They're scared to take the bus. And you even said that it seems like sometimes it's wild, wild west out there, right? So you're forcing me to take the train and the bus when I have to because I can't afford congestion pricing, but you're forcing me to get on the trains with sometimes mentally ill people and fighting for myself. Yeah. But then also you're forcing me for a lot of these mom and pop businesses to close down because people can't afford to drive in anymore for a nice lunch. They can't afford to come in and conduct business in my spot anymore. Yeah. So why do we do the congestion prices where it affects people and hurts people before we make sure that the ordinary people are the ones taken care of and are okay?
Well, look, when I'm on the train, that might be the only time I can listen to my music. So sometimes that's like that getaway you have right there. But like when we talk about what we have to do here, we too often are not thinking through the integration of life, right? It goes back to COVID. People would say, I want for everybody to be able to figure things out during COVID and have social distancing. Well, how does someone have social distancing when they have 7 people living in their crib, right? Like some of these things don't make sense. Hey, I want for these kids to be able to figure out remote learning, but they don't have a tablet and don't have Wi-Fi, right? So to that same vibe, when we talk through around congestion pricing and these other policies, I'm trying to reverse engineer and say, let's think about how does it impact people, right? How do we think through that if I'm making that turn on 60th, but there's no real ways to turn off before that, you're effectively forcing people to go into that zone and taxing them. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem right. I think there should be an exemption on people that live in these zones, and I think there should be an exemption on people that are public servants, right?
I agree.
That just makes sense to me, right? If someone is coming in and they're like, yo, I'm driving into the zone because I want to go to a show, I want to get a meal, then that's their choice, right? But for the cats that are like, I'm just trying to get by, that doesn't make sense at all. And a lot of the argument has been, well, we're making so much money from congestion pricing, so that makes it worthwhile. No, if people are struggling still, right? And so to me, I'm reimagining what this city can look like and trying to show people that you have a different option out here. And that if you actually want to show people, yes, we can have an affordable city where we don't lose who we are as black and brown folk, then you have an option, and that's me.
How can you eliminate credit scores for apartments and home ownership, right?
Yeah.
Sounds amazing, but I think you and I both know that anytime you go to fill out a loan, whether it's a housing loan, a bank loan, an apartment loan, the number one thing they check is credit score.
Yeah.
Number 2 is probably your if you actually have a job and your pay stub.
And sometimes for good reasoning too, just to see kind of like what your payment history is like and all of that stuff. Like I get.
Yeah.
You answer the question first and then I'll come in. Because I'm thinking about it out loud. Go ahead.
Credit scores is a recent thing. That started in 1989. This is not something that was like back in the day. We had many ways to assess how someone was able to pay their rent and their mortgage. The notion that a credit score, which could be impacted because you missed a phone bill, a credit card bill 20 years ago, is more important than are you paying your rent consistently.
Oh, I agree with you.
It doesn't make any
because
logical
you could
sense.
have one bad month.
And then
as an entrepreneur
and it's a
or
wrap.
anything, one bad month, somebody steals your ID, anything happen one bad month, and your credit's down in the drain. And I think
destroyed.
That sucks.
Yes. And the reality is, I'm gonna actually go back to one of your earlier questions. This is one of the things that Eric has done well that needs to be expanded upon. We're not assessing these credit scores on some of these HPD units right now in New York City. So it's not an argument that we can't do it. It's a choice. So, transparently, I'm on the board of Ready Life, which is this is where I learned about it, chaired by, Dr. Bernice King, led by Ashley Bell, where it was like, okay, let's use some common sense. What is the best way to determine if you can pay your rent or mortgage on time? Have you paid your rent and mortgage on time? That's more important than did I do something else? So to me, if we actually want to help more people have a chance, eliminate that completely across the board, and then assess, okay, how do I help you? But then the second piece is you have to do, we got to increase the income limits on these housing applications. Because what's happening right now is you either have to be really rich or poor enough to get access to a home, and then people getting boxed out. The reason why so many people are leaving the city, because housing and childcare. So to me, if there's anything that someone's trying to think through, what is the main policy I want to make happen? And credit scores when it comes to housing applications. Expand that out. You do that, which we know we can do because the city is doing it to a limited degree. Increase the income limits, do that, and then have a local median income. That out the gate changes the game. And each of those three are happening in other places. The only reason why we're not doing it right now is lack of leadership. And if you're asking someone, right now, I'm struggling to pay these bills. I'm trying to figure out how to make this all happen. But my life is going to be impacted by something I forgot to pay 20 years ago. That's crazy.
Or it could be something as small as, hey, my mother got sick and I had to use my money for rent to pay this.
To help somebody.
I'll catch up next month.
1,000%. Like
happens all the time.
All the time. Like, you know what? Hey, landlord, I don't have you on the first. I got you a little bit later because I do X, Y, and Z. And the other thing about credit scores that people think through is like you have different agencies creating different numbers. So again, that's just not fair in how this all works. And I want to show people if we're serious about having a housing, which I do think we got to build about 600,000 units at least. Current numbers say it's about 540 just to hit the current supply demand. But for you to build the housing, you then got to make sure people actually can afford it when they get there.
That was going to be my question to you. That's why I said for sometimes good reasoning, only because I'm thinking like, all right, so you say we'll make it where these people can afford it. We'll give them better money, better income, right? So then they're able to pay their bills and the credit raises, and then we'll have more housing for them. But a lot of times it feels like politicians will say things like that, but you can't do everything at once. So maybe you create more jobs for people with better pay rate, but then that middle point where they can't get, they're not making enough money for certain places, but they're not broke enough to get into, or the income isn't low enough to get into other places.
You said broke enough, you can stay there. I feel you.
Okay, so you get what I'm saying? Like you're in this place where it's like I might be making more money, but I still don't qualify for these margins of 3 or 5 times the rent. So I'm still struggling. So it's kind of like as a landlord, you're looking at it like, well, I just got to do the best I can do by determining who I can let in here. So it's like we always caught in this circle of things. How do you know for a fact that you can do both at the same time if you get in office?
Well, first, I'm Jamaican, so I'm used to 3 jobs. Right? So we regularly make it happen. Second, I'm not a normal politician. I've actually made things happen. I run small businesses right now. I helped get Barack Obama elected. I served in the White House. I saw how to get these things done. And when I was in the assembly, every single year, and I'm going to come back to the housing piece, but I think context is important. Every single year, we did something major that they said couldn't get done. My Brothers Keeper program, no other state in the country has that. There are black and brown boys right now going to school and graduating from school that did not have funding. We made that happen. Prompt pay bill so that businesses get paid in 15 days instead of 30 days. Bipartisan bill, they said they couldn't make that happen. raised the age. Khalif Browder was our constituent. New York and North Carolina were the last two states for 16, 17-year-olds to be tried as adults. We changed that when they said that couldn't happen. So to the question of how, we know right now that there are easy fixes that will help people be able to stay in their homes. And for all the black folk, brown folk, low-income folk who are leaving New York City because of housing, fundamentally, raising the income limits on these applications, which would be a huge help for our seniors as well, huge help for those that are disabled as well, so that it is actually proportional to your neighborhood. Then you actually give someone a chance. The wilder thing is, and I'm going back and forth on the Eric good, bad, right? We voted on true cost of living so we can actually understand what are the costs by your neighborhood. He hasn't implemented it. The reason why that's important is that you can understand not just housing costs, but groceries, transportation, education, because if you know all of that, then what we put in these applications is proportional to that number. What's going on in the South Bronx is not the same as South Shore Staten Island. What's going on in Central Brooklyn is not the same as Southeast Queens. What's going on in East Harlem is not the same thing on what's going on Upper West Side. And so we should base it upon that. And to do that, you need someone who's actually talking about it. And I'm the only one that's talking about that in that very real way and talking through how you make this happen. These are policy changes through legislation. This is administration changes through leadership. And then this is funding changes in the budget. Full stop.
What's your relationship with President Barack Obama now? How's your relationship?
Still my dude. He's consistently been a blessing to me.
What's been his advice when he knows that you're running for this? Because he's faced some of the things that you facing now. That he was far behind at one time. So what is his opinion to you? Be
very clear about why you're running and giving people choice and contrast, right? That you can't just talk through big ideas. You got to make it clear to folks that there's a difference, right? When we were in Iowa, thinking about this here, we were in Iowa, there was a point he was down like 30. He flew in, got everybody together, and he told this story about how he was at the St. Patrick's Day parade running for U.S. Senate, and he was the last entry in the parade. And so what that meant was that everybody was saying Barack Hussein Osama, saying wild things, and they were a little drunk, so people saying wild things. Year later, same parade, he was the Grand Marshal. And he was like, if you put in that work and you make it clear around choice and contrast, then people will remember. And I always took that, and he stays with that. It's like when people voted for him, he said, I'm going to end the war. I'm going to get you health care. Make it real clear on your big ideas. Then everyone's can rock from that. And that's why I'm being consistent in the same way. When I talk through credit scores, we talk through 1,000 mental health professionals, we talk through civics, because when you have so many people in the race, if you don't give people that clear choice, then the easy thing is just pick a name you've seen before, right? And he stays with me. I mean, the screensaver that I have is when we brought him to the Bronx. We launched My Brothers Keep Alliance in the Bronx. And he would joke with me. He was trying to give me a shout out. I was trying to be cool. He said, the president says your name, stand up, get TV time. He still is in that same zone of follow the vision, make it clear, but make it clear about choice and contrast. And he's also showing us and telling me, like, be that messenger. I don't know if we brought the signs, but there was a time when we were in the White House for a legislative event, dapped him up, he's about to walk by, and he tells people, like, we would not be here without Michael Blake. And I'm forever grateful for what he did for me, and I'm going to take that same kind of energy.
He's also, everybody likes to criticize Obama too. At the same time,
who's everybody?
There are people that criticize Obama. There's a lot of people that criticize Obama, but not me personally. But I'm saying that we hear the criticisms. So I'm asking you: is there things that he says, just as a mentor almost, that I would advise you not, like something he learned that he would advise you to approach differently or not to do while on your run? Look,
at the end of the day, you have to stay true to the numbers and how you organize, right? And it's easy to get distracted by noise, and that could take you off your plan. And that kind of, to your point, you're gonna hear a lot of folks who are just like, yo, why are you doing this? Right? Why are you doing this? 2-3 weeks ago, I had people saying, why are you even out here doing these things? And then by the end of that night and the next day, pretty much every publication said I won the debate.
Oh, when you came at Cuomo.
Right? So it's like you got to stay locked in even in the midst of the noise.
A lot of times with politicians, I feel like they don't speak straight to things, especially like Democrats. But so I learned about you or found out who you were, or I guess maybe started paying attention more when the Cuomo thing happened, because I liked, even though, not to be messy, but I just like you said what you meant. You said to him, the people who don't feel safe are young women, mothers, and grandmothers around Andrew Cuomo, right? And you said that straight shooter. Do you plan to still be that way as a mayor? Because a lot of times once people are elected, they have to like step back and filter what they say. And
this is who I am all day, every day, right? Whether it be in the family, whether it be on the block, you can't grow up on Crescent and Burnside and then go back on these kind of things. And I would say that whether it be on a debate or if I'm just talking to people at the restaurant. And I think one of the reasons why we've been successful in office is that people see that I'm consistent in what I'm doing. That's what folks can't stand about politics right now. They feel like, y'all, to your point, you just say something, you just kind of keep it moving.
Yeah.
And you're not real about that. And it is easier to be consistent in who you are than trying to move around and shift by neighborhood. That's just not how I get down. And that's why I say to people, give me the chance right now. I tell folks, number 2 in most of these polls, if it's not Zoran, is undecided, right? You got a lot of time to still make a decision. And it feels like a lot of people are still trying to understand, well, who can I rock with in this moment? And I'm trying to show you got a choice.
Should undocumented immigrants be allowed to vote in local New York City elections?
Potentially for municipal ones itself. We got to figure out how this all gets incorporated collectively itself, right? To that degree. Because it's a fascinating piece, right? Because a green card holder is able to contribute to campaigns, right, in New York City. So it's just like, we got to figure out a way to make an equal balance across the board.
Should Rikers Island be closed?
1,000%.
Reformed?
Has to be closed.
Why?
It's an inhumane place. It's the second largest mental health facility in the country, only LA County being larger. You've got to find more ways, and most people there haven't even been convicted of anything. They're just waiting, right? And so if we actually reduce the population so that more people can actually be closer to their homes while they're waiting, and you can actually help the people who have the mental health concerns, then you can take the real steps of getting into the space where you can build borough-based jails, which is what we actually need. Borough-based jails makes much more sense than just sending people out to Rikers to sit there.
Okay. Well, get out there and vote. For the last thing, tell people why they should vote for Michael Blake. Michael
Blake is the only candidate saying the truth around ending credit scores for housing applications. Michael Blake's the only one that is out here saying that we need 1,000 mental health professionals instead of NYPD. Michael Blake's the only one that's saying civic, financial literacy, and mental health for these kids. I'm the only one that was that truth teller on that stage. Not afraid of Trump, not afraid of Cuomo, not afraid of any of the noise. If you want someone who has the ability to change the game at all levels, and you want the handsome Jamaican who actually comes from the Bronx right now, right, who can talk about hip hop and talk about housing at the same time, I want to be your first choice. And if I'm not your first choice, I want to be your second choice. But most importantly, I want to be on your ballot. That's why Michael Blake should be your mayor. All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Blake, do your research, and if they want to donate to your campaign, how can they do that? Oh, man, much love on that. Go to the website, BlakeForNYC.com, BlakeForNYC.com. You can sign up to donate. You can sign up to volunteer. We have offices all across the city. Our headquarters is in the Bronx at 1 Bruckner Boulevard, but we have satellite offices on 5 boroughs. And just, again, remember, everybody, fill out the ballot. Don't just rank me first. Fill out all 5 spots of your 5 choices. That makes it a point that your candidate is going to win. And tell them don't mess with your donation money because you'll file a lawsuit. Yo, let me tell you something. Man, people play games. Play games and and find out. There you have it. Play super games, win super prizes. That's right. 1,000%. It's Michael Blake. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning. Good luck.
Wake that ass up. Early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.